Hello there, you're listening to the Box Office Show. I'm Ryan Hill.
And I'm Dylan Johnson. Today we're going to be talking about the box office numbers from last weekend and our box office predictions for this upcoming weekend.
We will also be talking about the long-awaited sequel to 2019's Joker. This film, still starring Joaquin Phoenix, adding Lady Gaga, and directed by Todd Phillips. Joker, Folie à Deux.
Got some news to share. We have some cast announcements for HBO's Green Lanterns, the detective Green Lantern series. Kyle Chandler has been announced as Hal Jordan and Aaron Pierre as Jon Stewart. It's supposed to be like a detective police procedural sort of series about the Green Lantern Corps. Ryan, thoughts?
I dig it.
Okay.
That's a thing I've been excited for. If you remember way back in our DCEU episode,
Yep.
where we were talking about how to restore or repair it, this was one of the things that I had lifted from the announcements that we already knew about the DCU that James Gunn is helming. So I'm a fan of it.
Okay.
And Kyle Chandler, love that guy. He's great.
Good actor.
So looking forward to that. And then Aaron Pierre, I haven't seen much of his work, but it has been a long, extensive casting process. So I'm sure he's the cream of the crop. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he will do with Jon Stewart, who is my favorite Green Lantern, obviously because he was the one in the animated show that I grew up with. So yeah, I cannot wait to see this series, see how it goes. Obviously, it's HBO proper, which I think they had converted Penguin also to HBO proper, but that was like initially supposed to be Max. Mm-hmm. This one, they had always had the HBO brand on it, so I think that speaks highly to the quality that they're trying to put into it. Again, Lindelof is attached to it, so I'm expecting good things. How about you?
I just don't care.
Not this. Even the detectives, Green Lantern detectives.
Again, I'll give it a shot. I'll give anything a shot. I've been watching The Penguin. I'll give anything a shot. Just not pumped at all. Not something that I'm actively looking forward to, really. In the same way that I used to look forward to superhero content. Like if this had been announced 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I'd be psyched. Mm-hmm. But too little, too late. Sorry. Dang. We'll see. I'll still watch it, but we'll see.
Maybe you will look forward to Christopher Nolan's next film, which is slated for release in July of 2026. He is reteaming with Universal, with whom he released Oppenheimer. And we have Matt Damon as the potential lead. Again, a collaborator with Nolan in at least 2 films. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Oppenheimer most recently. So what do you think about this? We have no details on what the film may be about, but it is looking to be an original work from Christopher Nolan.
Looking forward to it. Okay. Always looking forward to Christopher Nolan stuff. Love Matt Damon. Whatever it is, it's going to be something interesting, something good. What was Matt Damon in other than Oppenheimer?
Interstellar.
He is. I always forget because he's not actually billed in it.
Exactly.
He's supposed to be like a surprise at the end. You're right. He is in Interstellar. He's really good.
Great inclusion.
Really, really good in Interstellar. And that was like a year before The Martian too. Oh, it's great. Yeah. Really, really good in Interstellar. Completely forgot.
All right. And Amazon Prime, they are already renewing Reacher, starring Alan Ritchson. They are getting a 4th season before the 3rd season has even come out. So they are very much behind this TV adaptation of Jack Reacher. Have you seen any episode of the show, and will you start now that you see the confidence that Amazon Prime has behind it with 4 seasons guaranteed?
I've seen clips of it on YouTube, like the YouTube clips, YouTube Shorts things. That is pretty much like Instagram Reels, but for YouTube. It's like a worse version of Instagram Reels because it's the same content every single time you log into the app. There's no difference. It's like it shows the same videos over and over again. The algorithm is really fucked on it. Mm-hmm. But I've seen a lot of the Reacher clips through that scrolling around. And I think I would like the show. It just feels like one of those shows that's probably not going to blow me away like Breaking Bad or BoJack Horseman or something like that, or Game of Thrones, something mega massive. It seems more like a step up from a an episodic sort of like procedural show, but a
Hmm.
step below like a really good drama, somewhere in that range. And I think at the very least, it seems very entertaining.
Yeah.
So I think one day when I've got nothing else to watch, I might throw it on, see what I think. I enjoy all the clips I see. It looks like a good show. I think I would like to watch it. There's just nothing compelling me to sit down and like binge it, you know?
Mm. No, I
So
feel
it's like,
the same way. Again, it's nothing on my radar yet, but if I hear more good things about these upcoming seasons, then maybe I will add it to my list and give it a go. But let's go ahead and dive into our box office breakdown for October 4th to the 6th. Joker, of course, is the film that we are discussing. It made it in the number one spot, but it did not have a very good performance. One might call it a flop, another might call it a bomb. It certainly did not reach our expectations. It made 37.6 million in its opening, which is 2 million shy of Morbius, the opening of that, of course, classic comic book film. Dylan.
I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna fucking kill myself. This shit was on my box office draft, as you know, and
Hmm.
this was supposed to be the like final nail in the coffin. Me claiming victory to this box office draft was Joker 2 supposed to come out and at least do like 75 million opening weekend, just to say like I did it, I won, you got
Hmm.
beat. This is abysmal, especially because it's going to drop off so hard following this.
Yes,
We're
because
looking at
we.
like 200 million, 300 million worldwide total, which is terrible. Like I
Yeah,
I may need to reevaluate some things. There's not many movies coming out for the rest of the year, but maybe if I dig in deep, I can find something to replace it with because this is pretty abysmal. I might not be able to do it, so
yeah.
I might just have what I got, which sucks.
So I will say, again, you are in such a good position right now.
Yes,
This is the lifeline that I needed. We
this
were
is
talking about it,
this
and
brings it back into being like possible for you. If this hadn't happened, it would not have been possible for you, but now it is possible again.
it is possible. So things are coming together. We'll see how things go. Obviously, I made my switch to Venom, so we'll see how that plays out. But as you said, there's not very many things left for the pickings. However, I think based on all the gloating, all the boasting you were doing throughout the rest of the year,
Uh huh.
you should just sit and eat this. You have a $3 billion lead over me.
Go fuck yourself. If I
$3 billion.
can replace Joker, I'm gonna
And
do
you're
it.
whining about Joker 1 year
3 billion's
films
not enough. I want to
underperforming.
crush you,
This kid with 3 billion
kid. How dare you?
saying,
You better
yeah,
be
well, you're
defeated by a
babyface now,
man.
clean shaven. If you had a
Fuck you.
mustache, I'd call you man. But this guy
This is
saying
not a visual medium, Ryan. You can't do this bit.
he needs more, even more, when he has a $3 billion lead. I say
I'll show you three
you
billion
just sit
dollar
on this.
lead.
You sit with Joker. Okay,
I'll
you
make you
had
sit on
it. You
this.
draft. What are you doing? You and for that comment as well, you should just let it ride. Okay,
I'll make you
not
let
great
it ride.
choices, not great word choices, but you
I'll
should
let you
just let
ride.
it play out as it will. We'll see if my three films that I have coming up are able to make $3 billion and catch up to you. But obviously, that's extremely unlikely. However, this does make it interesting. The box office draft is not dead yet, so we will see. We will see how things
We
shake
will
out.
see.
But this is what I needed. I needed a big, monumental, historic flop out of Joker, and boy,
You
did it
got it.
deliver.
You got it. In second place was the Wild Robot with 18.9 million.
Beetlejuice with 10.1 million, bringing its domestic total to 265.
Transformers 1 made 5.4 million.
Speak No Evil with 2.7 million. It has now surpassed 30 million domestic.
Sam and Colby, The Legends of the Paranormal, a movie I've never heard of, made 1.7 million.
It's apparently they're YouTubers, and this is
Oh,
their a limited release of their film. But hey, their fans went out 1.7
yeah.
million, so good for them.
It's a significant amount for
Yeah,
YouTubers, yeah. It's a big hit.
Deadpool and Wolverine with 1.5 million.
Whitebird, 1.5 million.
The Substance 1.3 million.
and Megalopolis with 1 million.
Oh yeah,
Bummer.
holding in
Bummer for
top 10.
Frankie Coppola in the grave.
All right, we have predictions for October 10th to the 12th. Terrifier 3 is coming out. So which clown will be at the top of the box office? Will it be Joker or will it be, I don't know the name of the clown in Terrifier, but
Artie, something like
something
that.
like
Artie
that,
the
yeah.
Clown. I don't know. I've
Which
never seen the
one?
Terrifier movies. Probably the Terrifier, if I had to guess. People love this shit. People love this franchise. The
Indeed.
the diehard fans will come out for it. I think it's gonna make like 18 million.
Very on the nose guess. For Joker.
You shut up, you motherfucker. That was a subconscious draw. I may have seen it earlier today and just forgot about it. All right. We're
Mhm.
recording this on a Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. The Sunday that okay, buddy. Make me go in and cut a
they're,
lot in this
they're
episode.
estimates. You don't know. We don't know what the actual numbers could be, but yeah. Joker, of course, with a D cinema score, which is the lowest of any comic book movie ever, which is very impressive. It is not looking like it'll do very well this upcoming week. So we'll
Nope.
see how hard it falls. But yeah, Joker not doing too hot. But what did we think of it? Okay, what did us independent free thinkers, critics of films, what did we think about Joker 2? To talk about that, let's first go back and understand what we thought about Joker 1, which we actually have an episode on in the lost tapes somewhere, which we should look into releasing. I think that'd be fun. You got to still go back and see if we
I'll dig into
actually
it.
have
Yeah,
it in the archives there.
I gotta
Um,
find it. Yeah,
but
way deep cut from 5 years ago.
exactly, yeah. So we were doing the show. Yeah, it was October 2019. So our
Life
thoughts
was
are
so easy
enshrined
back
in that.
then.
But I have not seen it since then. But I believe
I
you have.
have. I watched it this week,
Interesting.
leading up to
So
it.
let's talk about what our general thoughts were in the moment when we first saw it, and then now that you've been able to look back and see it with a fresh pair of eyes
Mhm.
5 years later, have your thoughts changed?
Yeah. What do you remember? Because we watched it together,
We
and
did,
I remember neither of us liked it. What
indeed.
What do you think your What do you remember of your criticism? What do you remember of the movie relating to your criticisms?
So I remember in the positives column, of
Mhm.
course, the cinematography was
Of course.
incredible. The music was incredible.
I think we could arguably say every technical in the
Yeah,
original
the craft
Joker was
stuff was
incredible.
great. I had some issues with Joaquin Phoenix's performance. There were just some moments that I didn't fully buy. Felt a little like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, overacting. However, I still think for the most part it was great, and obviously he won the Oscar for it. So yeah, he did quite well for himself there. However, the writing I remember was not great, particularly the moment where there's that whole subplot of him and that his neighbor, I guess, someone else that's living in the apartment,
Yep.
and he has this fantasy love story with her in his head, which very clearly is like something that's in his head, but they did not think the audience was going to be able to get that. So we're handheld very tightly to show us that, oh, it is in fact in his head. And
Yep.
that stuff I didn't think was great. I thought the Thomas Wayne stuff was also not great. There's just like the actual logic of him maybe being the kid, maybe not, that whole thing. It's fuzzy because I haven't seen it forever, but I remember that not being as well rendered as it
Mhm.
potentially could have been. It was like compelling in concept, but it didn't quite all come together. And then I know we both had some issues with just the way it ended off, and we were obviously there was the whole discourse going into it of people were afraid that it was gonna like I don't know just whip up people into a frenzy, and there might be I don't know what exactly they thought was gonna happen, but it might incite violence in some way. And then just the way the film ended off and the way that we were looking at Arthur Fleck's character, I didn't know that it came down hard enough on like him not being someone that should be admired and emulated. And so we had some concerns about that, but yeah, that's what I remember. How about you?
I remember intensely trashing it on the box office breakdown that we did
Dang,
that episode. Do you remember this?
I don't remember
I remember
any of
trashing
that.
it the second we walked out of the theater. I remember really hating it. I
I remember
remember
that though distinctly. We sat. because we came down to Oviedo Mall. We went into the like dining area, and then we sat at that
Mhm.
table and we're just like talking about it there.
Yeah, I remember
So I remember
trashing
that.
it really hard. I remember trashing it hard on the show. And I know that for the last 5 years, I have been incredibly against it for everything you said and everything that I've said about it, everything that's been online that has been a criticism of it. I think has been very valid in saying that it's definitely a power trip. It's definitely like uh, promoting violence as an answer. It's telling you what the answer is a lot of the time. It's hand holding, like you said, a lot. I think I have a lot of problems with that. And I rewatched it last week in preparation for Joker 2 because I hadn't seen it in 5 years. I wanted to be refreshed on the story going into Joker 2. And I wanted to refresh my opinion now that I'm a much different person and just want to see where it was. And I think I may have been too harsh in my criticism 5 years ago. I think there
Fascinating.
are a lot of positives to the first Joker. I think it's very entertaining, at least. I think, of course, those technicals are very mesmerizing and notable. And it was nominated for like 11 Academy Awards and won a ton. So it's obviously very noteworthy in a lot of ways. That being said, I think my criticisms still stand. I don't think I changed my mind a lot about the things I had a problem with. I think everything you said hit the nail on the head perfectly. I think all of those things you said are really good, strong criticisms of the first Joker movie. I wish that they had nailed that script down a little bit better. I think the best parts of the movie are when the camera is just put on Joaquin Phoenix and he's allowed to do weird things like crawling into the fridge or like dancing around, things like that, or just like twirling the gun around, or like the things he does alone where he's pretending to be on Murray live. All those
Right.
things I think are the best parts of the movie. I think it gets bogged down too much in the plot and trying to connect it to the superhero world, trying to make it too in that Gotham universe with the Thomas Wayne stuff and whatnot. It gets a little bit frustrating having to watch it in that regard. And then everything to do with that subplot of the son, like him being Thomas Wayne's son, everything to do with the subplot of the neighbor, like you said, was frustrating and not necessarily uh, anything new that we've seen, nor is it. It's like even worse than the taxi driver trope, where at least in Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle is actually getting her attention, and it's like a real thing that they go on dates. He just drives her away because he's weird. And this one, it's like a full incel fantasy of picturing your dream life with this girl and then realizing it's fake and you made it all up. And it the way that it frames it, I don't think it necessarily makes it seem like it's her fault, but I think a lot of people took it that way, which is the problem.
Mm.
In a lot of like my criticisms of the movie was I think there was a lot of attempts to make it a criticism of this type of character in the same way that American Psycho is a criticism of this type of character, in the same way that Taxi Driver is a criticism of this type of character. And I think no matter what, this type of character is hard to get away with criticizing it without also idolizing it in a way, or at least making it a type of idol for the audience. They're always going to idolize these characters. And I think Joker did it too much. I think it leaned into that idolizing way too heavy compared to the other movies.
Hmm.
And obviously he's like a full blown hero at the end of the film, which is the worst part about it.
Yeah,
Still
he's like
though,
getting celebrated, and he's
yeah.
on the car and everything. I think, yeah, I don't know how much we got into that. Again, I'll be very curious to go back and listen to our Joker discussion because obviously that was the main, you know, element of the discourse there. And I would say, like to a certain extent, like whenever you do make a film about characters like this, there are going to be some people that just miss it entirely, and then they do latch on to
Mhm.
that character. Because again,
Yeah.
like see, I don't know how someone can watch American Psycho and
Oh
truly
yeah,
go
dude.
around with the Sigma
They
mindset of like, oh,
love
he's so good.
Patrick Bateman. Dude,
Yeah,
they
but it's
love
like
Patrick Bateman.
you have to be willfully just not engaging with the film you're actually watching in order to take away that message. Like, oh yeah, he's a cool
They
guy and
just
he got
think
it all
he's
figured
so
out.
cool. They
It's
think
like
Travis
absurd.
Bickle is so cool. They
Yeah.
think Leo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street is so cool.
And so it's yeah, there's going to be some people that always just take away that message, and that's a shame. That sucks. And then I can see as well because the issue is you're trying to portray these characters, and again, if you're having us follow a character, you want us to care about them in some way, at least care about what happens to them or what they're doing, make them interesting. Um, and they go about it in different ways. Again, Wolf of Wall Street, like an example of just everything is so high energy and crazy mania, and so you're getting uh, bought into the thrill of what's going on with those characters, despite them being despicable human beings. You're going along on the ride with them. With something like the first Joker, again, I think a lot of that was depicting how society, yes, does have issues and how it treats people, and just the way that he's getting knocked around constantly, making you feel sympathy for him and you feel bad for him. And then when he's finally able to exact his revenge or give people what they deserve, as they call it,
Hmm.
um, the film is showcasing for him how that's so fulfilling and rewarding and great. But then, like you said, I think a lot of the audience took that to heart a little too much and were celebrating alongside Joker a little too strongly there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's since I haven't gone back and seen the film again, I can't comment too much on like what should Todd Phillips have done differently in order to avoid as big of a problem as that became.
Hmm.
However, I think with Joker 2, we saw uh, him dealing with those concerns and those issues, and he said, "All right, this is what you thought of the first Joker. This is what you took away from it. Now let's flip all of that on its head and give you something that you are not going to enjoy or
Yeah.
admire at all." So yeah, we'll dive into that now. Our Joker 2 thoughts. What did you think? Initial impressions, and I assume you saw Joker before you saw Joker 2.
Yes, I watched Joker like a couple days before I went to see Joker 2.
Gotcha.
I gotta say, I can't believe that this is the lowest rated superhero movie, comic book movie.
Mm.
There are so many worse ones out there. There's so many, dude.
Yeah.
The Green Lantern movie, to name one, the original Fantastic Fours are not very good. There's so many other examples of like terrible comic book movies. And I think this one has moments. Of course, there is a really bad pacing issue going on. There are some character problems going on, especially towards the end. But ultimately, I think it was designed very intentional by Todd Phillips. I don't think anything was an accident. I don't think he made any mistakes. I think this is the movie he wanted to make.
He
I
had
think it
full
was,
creative control.
yeah.
Apparently, DC
I
said, "Here's a blank check. Go wild."
I think people were disappointed because they wanted Arthur Fleck to double down from the first movie, and instead he fully backtracked by the end, which I think is what disappointed a lot of people.
Hmm.
And I, even though I think it's a bad movie, I kind of liked and respected it for what it had to say, for what it did. I still don't think it's a good movie. I think it has a lot of mistakes going on. But I'm a sucker for musicals. I think the musical numbers were done decently at worst, if not like pretty good at other times. I think the transitions from like real world stuff into fantasy musical stuff were done well. I think as a piece of direction, I think it's good. I don't understand the criticisms that a lot of people have of the introduction of the musical elements. I think it works its way into the story fine. I think it can bend the time aspect of like going into fantasy and out of fantasy fairly well. So
Hmm.
I just don't understand why people. I think they just were annoyed that they were singing because people just don't like musicals, which I just don't get. I enjoy musicals. I love musicals, and I think it works for the most part. I will say there were some cringeworthy moments throughout the film. I think the first time Lady Gaga says we're gonna build a mountain, I think it goes kind of hard, and then she keeps saying it
The
over and over
thousandth
again,
time didn't hit
and
so
it gets
much.
worse and worse each time. I think my favorite time was when she's surrounded by the reporters and she says they ask her what's going to happen next and she says we're going to build a mountain and one of the not on screen reporters goes, "A what?" And I think that is to the point, or making the point that this is a much funnier film than the first Joker. Like the first Joker has nary a joke in it. This one I think has plenty of jokes and I think it's pretty funny at times.
Interesting. I the only one that sticks out to me that I can remember is the one where he's trying to get him to sign his book, one of the guards, and he's like,
Oh
"Yeah, this
yeah.
will sell for a fortune once he gets fried." And then you just see Arthur look over at him. I thought that was a good moment there. That's the one that stuck out to me is getting me to laugh. Um, yeah, I don't think any others are coming to mind there, but I will say this about your point there of like there being much worse other comic book movies out there, the cinema score, which is done, I think, like opening night, maybe it goes into Saturday too, but I think it's like Thursday and Friday night. They get the audience reaction to it, which is very good because it just gets unfiltered first reactions from people coming out of theaters. But it also is a great gauge of whether or not a movie was marketed properly. Because if you're going opening night, odds are that something in the marketing or something about, I guess, your pre established relationship with the IP made you want to go there to support it as early as possible. So if it's a very crowd pleasing film, if it delivers on what you're expecting, it's going to get a very high grade. One of the other films we had in our box office breakdown, Whitebird, I threw that in there. Again, 1.5 million. I don't know if you've ever even heard of that.
I
It's
don't
like a
think so.
sequel spin-off thing to the film Wonder from like way back when, starring Jacob
Oh,
Tremblay,
I
and he
remember
had
that. Yeah.
some like deformity on his face, and it was all about him getting bullied. But then it's a heartwarming coming of age story. This is like the bully going off and getting told by his grandmother a story, a love story of her in World War II. Um, so again, not many people went to see it, but it got an A plus cinema score, which is exceedingly rare. So that just goes to show, like, it's really about how it's marketed to the target audience, and then when they come in, were they given what they expected? Because this film so totally was trying to not give the people that were the most enthusiastic and passionate about the first Joker what they wanted. That's why I got a D cinema score.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
because yeah, that's very low, very rough. Definitely not something I want to see. And it's because, as you brought up, I think Todd Phillips was very intentional of how he wanted to construct this film. I think a lot of the criticisms that were levied at the first film about it being too much of that, power fantasy, and again, people were calling it like the incel manifesto and things like that. He, I think, really wanted to rail against that and show this guy, Joker Arthur Fleck, as someone who's ultimately like pathetic and not really someone to follow, to put on a pedestal, things like that. Which obviously, again, if you really connected with the first film, if you really enjoyed it, if you cared
If you
about Fleck and all
idolize the
that,
guy,
yeah, if you idolize him as well, if he's part of your,
you're gonna be just as
Sigma
disappointed as Harley Quinn.
Mount Rushmore, then yeah, you're gonna be the Harley Quinn in this scenario, just being like, wow, not what I wanted. So yeah, I think in concept, again, the idea of like a musical, taking Joker, the sequel to Joker, making it a musical, already that alone is gonna like alienate people. But then also making it an intentional deconstruction of this guy and the myth of Joker and how
Mhm.
that's become celebrated in the city
Yeah,
as a way to fight back against the corruption and all the wealthy and the elite and all these bad things that are going
yeah.
on. I think that's a great idea. Like, what a bold approach to
It's a
have.
bold choice, right?
However, I don't think it's executed on in the best way. I don't think it's
Yeah, of course.
delivered very well. And that's not to say the
He tried.
craft isn't just as good as the first one, because it is. Again, cinematography is excellent.
All the
The
technicals are
performances are very
fantastic.
strong. Again, all the like the music, the stuff like that. I think all that's great. Um, so it's not like it's fallen away there. It's just the execution of this particular idea. I just don't think was able to live up to those bold ambitions that he had. Because in part, as you said there, it's a little like disjointed in areas. The pacing isn't always great. The musical elements, we'll dive into that more deeply, but there were parts of it that I really enjoyed, and I wish they would have gone even further into those musical elements. Whereas there were other parts where I did feel like it was just, I don't know. He's like, okay, well, it's been a while since we've had another song, so let's put another one in here to essentially convey the same emotion and same information that just a shot on Arthur Fleck as he's coming back from the courthouse would have done, in which they did. They like included that as well. They had a whole musical number of him feeling all triumphant and everything, after he had kicked his lawyer to the side. And then we still had that shot that would have been included in like the original Joker or any other drama where there aren't the musical elements. And we still just had that shot of like, okay, here's him thinking back on that moment and having that little smile as he's entering the prison again. I'm like,
Mhm.
why are we doing both of the things of like including the musical number to showcase his thought process here, but then also we're just including all the other scenes that we normally would include if we didn't have the musical elements to do that for us.
Mm.
So that stuff I didn't think was great. The courtroom drama stuff, you and I were both fans of courtroom stuff. And I
It's
love
mid.
debate and argument and rhetoric in any and all cases, but yeah, it was mid. There just weren't any stakes. Number one, because it's like,
It's just such a like a cut and dry case. Like
yeah, like there's,
he
and it's not
shot Murray
even
Franklin on live television.
on live TV. Everyone saw it,
What
and
would
it's
have
just
made it have stakes is if Catherine Keener had like come up with an actual argument to get him out of it, and
mhm.
and we were like following her, potentially freeing him. I think that would have been a more captivating story to follow. Is that she's actually about to maybe not free him, but like get him off the hook, very much so. And then he gets like this conscious of what have I become? What is the Joker? The Joker is not me. It has gone out of hand, and now I'm about to get away with it. Like that would have been a much more interesting story to follow, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, because there was no doubt that he was going to get, the guilty verdict.
Yeah.
But it was also between him getting the death penalty and him just, I guess, being life in prison. Like, I don't think they were litigating, like, did he do it or not? It was just like, how severe is that punishment going to be?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
They
there were
shot him
no
on live television. There's just no way.
there were no stakes there. And then a lot of it was just like people getting brought on to talk about what had happened in the first Joker movie, and I enjoyed parts of that because I thought it would touch really nicely on, again, this idea of this crime and what in the first film was portrayed, again, because we're looking at it through Arthur Fleck's perspective, but a lot of people took it as like, yes, like those people did get what they deserved, and that was a great thing for him to have done. um, and then you see here people that were affected not directly by like getting killed, but the people that were left to pick up the pieces afterwards. I forget her name, but Zazie Beetz' character, and then Gary as well. Is it Gary Puddles? Is that what it
Scary
was?
Puddles.
Yeah, which they made a big show about his last name in there. So Gary and the girl, both of them talking about like, oh, after the TV movie was made, everyone kept trying to like come to me and harass me essentially. And then with Gary, him feeling like so traumatized after witnessing someone get killed right in front of him, thinking that he was next. And then it's all coming from this one guy that he thought he had camaraderie with. They were like, oh, we're both treated as these outcasts and these freaks and all of this, but we're able to be nice to each other and have that sort of simpatico relationship. And then it's torn away because he does this awful, horrific thing. So I thought that idea was great to explore again. Like, oh, what
The
does
real
the quote unquote
consequences.
Joker mean to these other people? Yeah, what are those real consequences that the people that had to live through
Yeah.
it and were
Because the
touched by it
consequences
face?
of Arthur Fleck going to prison or going to Arkham Asylum, those aren't things that matter to Arthur Fleck. Like he's going to do this, and that's not a consequence he's thinking of. He doesn't give a shit. But the consequence of traumatizing Gary, who he actually cares about, who he spares in the first movie, and he like cares about as a person, is something that he has to like mull over. You know, it's something that weighs on him. I think, which I think is
Yeah,
smart.
which I thought was one of the most effective scenes in the film was him coming, like Gary essentially saying that, like, do you know
Mhm.
what that did to me? Like the fact that it was you, what that does to me.
Yeah.
And
What
then
did you
we
think of
see
his
him get
southern
affected.
lawyer
Oh
drawl as
my
he's
God.
interrogating Gary?
He really went for it. It was
I
like,
love it.
I
I think it's
must
great.
say, I do declare.
I do declare. Gary Puddles, is that your God given name?
Can't
Gary
possibly be.
Puddles? Really? That's your name, Puddles?
Yeah. So yeah, that's another example, I guess, of it just being a little funny. Them just going for giggles here and there. But yeah, I thought for the most part that moment when it did get serious later on, when he dropped the act and Gary was opening his heart up, I thought that was nice. But I wish they would have gone further into that for the most part. Like that would have been compelling to see again just the ramifications of his actual actions and what the symbol of Joker to the whole city would mean. But I don't think they went far enough with it. I think Harley Quinn as another sort of example of that, of like people that are spellbound by this person that seems like, oh wow, they really win against the system here. They were beaten down so much, and then they rose up against it. How intoxicating that can be, and the real life phenomenon of serial killers just constantly getting love letters and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
people will go and marry imprisoned serial killers. Like that's crazy to me. But there's
It's
clearly a
awesome.
real phenomenon there. So Harley Quinn sort of being a character like that, I thought was an interesting idea. Because again, it is not at all the Harley Quinn character from the comic books. But again, it's like this is a whole different world anyway. So if they approach her in this way, I thought that was
Yeah,
compelling.
she's like the OG Harley Quinn from the actual animated series. She's just an extension of the Joker's morals. You know
Mm,
what? You disagree?
kinda.
In what
Yeah, I don't think
regard?
that because that's definitely the case. But I feel like even in that animated show, like they and maybe that was how it evolved later on. Well, no, because was she always part of it? It was the Mad Love was like their like the origin story of it, but she was part of it for longer than that. And we just see like constantly him mistreating her and uh, her again still fawning over him and everything like that. And then in other iterations, it goes on to her more essentially finding her own voice and finding a way to break
Yeah,
apart from that, like abusive relationship and everything there. I think again the starting point here of like her having the same morals as Joker, that's not my concern. My concern is with the approach they did decide to take. They just didn't have anything to go along with it. Like all she does is show up either in musical numbers or in his visions and dreams or visiting him like when he's in the cell, something like that. Um, and just saying these like ultimately bland and meaningless things of like, oh yeah, like be you, I want to see the real you, like go
we're
ahead and
gonna
show
build
them
a
who you
mountain.
are, give the people build a mountain. Um, and I was like, there's so much more that they could have done with this character, again, to represent that whole phenomenon there that I was just talking about, but also to like dive more deeply into, okay, so who is this guy? What is the Joker? And they kept trying to make that whole thing of is Joker the Shadow? Is it a split personality thing? Which also didn't seem to really matter and wasn't that interesting. They didn't really explore that too much. And even when they have in the ending where he's like, there is no Joker, it's just me. And then everyone throws their hands up and they're like, ah, this guy, like I thought he was something else. I
Yeah,
was
they
like,
all
is that
walk out.
was the idea that like everyone else thought the Joker was again some like split personality or some other thing he put on? Like I thought the whole idea was like, yeah, it was they were celebrating because it was him, the guy Arthur Fleck, that essentially ascended into the Joker. Like it was always him. Why are we now
Yeah,
having Harley and everyone else be like, "Oh, you suck because you're saying you're Arthur Fleck
it's a
and you're also
bold
the Joker."
move
Like it's
to
they're
assume
one and
that
the same. That was
the
always the point.
it's a bold move to assume that the crowd in the courtroom and the audience, or like the audience, can assume what Arthur Fleck is feeling and thinking based on what little he says in like that immediate moment. The audience understands what he's saying, but to assume that the courtroom can read between the lines of what he's saying and know that he isn't the Joker in a very literal sense and walk out immediately is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I would definitely I would agree with that. And again, the idea, even though of it being like, oh, like he's not the Joker all the time, like it was just this big outburst and everything like that. Um, and so he really is just this pitiful, pathetic man most of the time, and the Joker was just this one time event. Even then, like, why would people care that much? He was parading around in the Joker costume, things like that. Like, if they wanted to make him a symbol, they would do that anyway. They do that anyway. You see with the car bomb and everyone else running around, like they've already done that. So again, I don't know why they had such a negative reaction to him saying, "The Joker's me. I am the Joker. There is no other Joker." As if
Yeah.
to say again that idea of like, oh, it's just Arthur Fleck. Like I was never that guy. I was never Joker. It just doesn't
Yeah.
compute. It doesn't quite make sense. And so yeah, Harley as well. Her whole thing of like gassing him up and being like, yeah, the fantasy of the Joker, and then immediately turning away once he's starts having doubts. I forget what the exact was. It that moment when he said in the courtroom that she left, or was it before then? Because he had the whole call with her, and then he sang to her over the phone.
That was
Um,
after she left.
That was after
She
she
already gone
left. But
home.
was it before or after he had already said, "Oh, there's no Joker, it's just me"?
She leaves when he says that.
Okay,
And then that's his closing argument. And then he goes and he's waiting for the verdict and he calls her on the phone. And then they come back for the verdict. And then that's when the explosion happens,
I
which
see.
is
I see.
also crazy.
Yeah, that was again like the craft of it. I thought that was great. The
I'm a little bit. It's the old Hitchcock thing of bomb under the table. Like it's just so unexpected that there's going to be an explosion in the courtroom that it's jarring in a bad way because there hasn't been anything like it the whole fucking movie. The whole movie's so slow up until that point that throwing an explosion in there just to pick up the pace feels forced.
Yeah, I'm just talking about
And then the
the
rest of
the aftermath and then the whole running through the streets and everything. I thought
I don't give a
that
shit.
stuff
It's
was great.
all it's a wonder. I don't give a shit about that. It's unnecessary in the sense that he gets rejected by Lady Gaga, which he already had been rejected, and he ends up back in Arkham, which is where he would have gone anyway after the guilty verdict.
Hmm.
So, what was the purpose of the explosion? To show that there are people that are still idolizing him and that he's still like creating this crazy influence. I feel like the final scene still shows that off where he gets stabbed. I just think the explosion was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I think it was to showcase him seeing his supporters, like people that are literally wearing his mask and his getup, and they're helping him out, and then he runs from them. He straight up flees from them to show that again he's like not caring about the nameless supporters that he has. He cares only about Harley and what she thinks, which I think could work if we actually cared about the Harley Joker relationship in this. But I
Yeah.
just don't think it was well developed enough. Again, I don't know what like she was trying to get out of all this. Again, she's the one like gassing him up with the fantasy and everything. So when he is like trying to be real with her, I don't know why she totally is against it. Um, and then again, I just wish they would have had more for the two of them to do together that wasn't just them singing all these other songs, which again for the most part I was not against. Like I thought it was fine. They clearly took the approach of them being more restrained in their singing, so they're not belting it out all the time, and they didn't have these extravagant, intensely orchestrated set pieces to go along with things. That was a choice they had made. I think it can kind of fit the film they were going for. I would have preferred if we're going to go ahead and just make Joker someone that's infatuated with music and it being a way for him to dive into his fantasies and these false reality, just go all out. Like I think that would have been fine to just fully dig into the musical elements there. But for what they did do, I was okay with it. I just don't think I don't know, it didn't have enough there for their particular relationship to give me more and make me care about them, for me to actually, feel devastated as he does when she gets up and walks away on the iconic Joker stairs. So,
Mhm.
yeah, those were my concerns there. Again, courtroom stuff, you got me. I like courtroom stuff. Musical stuff, not as much a fan as you, but I
In
love
theory, this should be
the
like the perfect
stylism.
movie. A musical
Yeah,
court drama. This should be, in theory, like a great movie for me. And
right.
it could have been. It had all the elements. It
I
just
was
didn't
thinking
put
the
them
same
together
thing.
quite
Like
right.
I was there for it. I was in the mood again for like the musical stuff, and again all the stylism that you can put
I
into
think most
those
of the musical
set
stuff
pieces.
still works for me, at least. I think it does work.
I think the first three, like the one where he's singing around in the uh prison,
Yeah.
walking around all those guys, the one where they're sort of doing their escape, and
In
then
the fire, yeah.
yeah, and then the one right after that. Again, I think the pacing of it was not great to have this one come so immediately after, but the one where they're on that like stage and you have the set built behind them with the moon and the different apartment buildings with different
Mhm.
colors for all the windows. I
That
thought
shit's
that
awesome.
was lovely, looked incredible. But then after that, I think it was diminishing returns for the most part, where I was like, they're just not doing enough new stuff or visually interesting stuff. Again, the songs were all like, okay, the performance is all okay, but I was like, just go into it more. Like you have it here, you're already making it a musical. Just dive in 100%. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Again, it's the musical stuff I was ready for. The courtroom stuff, I'm typically always game for. The idea he had coming into it, I thought in theory works. It was just all of it coming together for some reason. It just did not function. It did not
It's a
work.
lot all at once.
Yeah.
And it's like a lack of commitment to one specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is unfortunate. And also just a weak script to begin with. Had the script been better, then you could pile on all the extras of like musical elements and fantasy and like going in and back and forth and all these character dynamics, but the script itself was already very weak. So the stylism put on top of that, it just feels like they were just wearing a clown mask, just put makeup on the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
for shame.
How about the ending? What'd you think?
They're just doing the same thing that Gotham did like 10 years ago, where they set up the Joker and then they pull the rug underneath him and go, "Oh, he's not the Joker. He's just the idea of the Joker, and this random character you've never met before. That's the Joker." You know, he's this nameless figure that's inspired by this guy who you thought was the Joker, but he's not the Joker. Like this, it's the same fucking thing. I don't care. I don't give a fuck.
When
Yeah,
he
he
sort
deserved
of
to die. I'm glad he did die in the end because he deserved to die. Like the character needs to die. He's far worse than Travis Bickle, and he's about as bad as Patrick Bateman. But Patrick Bateman gets away with it, which is its own commentary in itself. But I think in this story, Arthur Fleck dying makes sense.
mm-hmm.
I think it would have been better had he been. I guess it's fine. It's just kind of serviceable. I would have liked it more had he gotten like executed by the state with like regret in his eyes.
Dang, pro death penalty. You want him dead. You want
In
him
terms of
fried.
like storytelling, yeah, in the story, I think capital punishment goes pretty hard in a story. In real life, though, not at all, guys. Capital punishment is not good, guys. Really bad.
There we go. You heard it here first. So yeah, I didn't care all that much because again, I'm not attached to Arthur Fleck character.
Yeah,
And I was just
would you like
imagining
to?
what people like if I saw this on opening day with a bunch of people, some of them probably just dressed up as the Joker,
Mhm.
and just seeing like the room deflate as they see this guy get stabbed multiple times. I was like, wow, that would be like no wonder this got a D cinema score. Like people would have been pissed, and they would have been like, what was the point? Like, what was that all for? And even with me, who I'm not like sad about this character himself getting killed, but I had that same thought of like, great, what was like the point of all this? Um, so yeah, I don't know what else there would have been for the ending because again, you can't have him go out and escape and have another mob supporting him and everything like that. That wouldn't be great. But I was like, either way, he's either in prison the whole time or gets killed by the state or gets killed by a random prisoner shanking him. I was like, you're sort of, if you want to do what you're doing here, which is to make him not an admirable hero to a lot of the audience, you have to just beat him down to his lowest and then just end him, essentially. And I was like, I don't know what way they would have done that that wouldn't have felt like a slap in the face of like, why did we just spend 2.5 hours watching this go down? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Again,
Did
I'm
you?
conflicted about how all that goes because again, in theory, I like
Yeah.
his choice here to do all this, but the execution, even for us, like this was straight up, we
This is what
didn't
we
like the first
wanted.
Joker. We were the target audience for this of like people.
Yeah.
He was making a film for people that didn't like the first Joker, and
This
we still
one.
didn't like
This
this
one
one,
was for us.
and it wasn't good, and we didn't enjoy it. So what's
Bummer.
like? There's something really wrong with that.
Come on, Todd. Did you think it was funny that in the explosion they two-faced Harvey Dent?
I I clocked that. I was like, interesting. Yeah.
I just don't understand why these two movies have to make these Batman references when, if you really think about it, in the context of Batman, it doesn't make sense that Harvey Dent becomes Two Face while Bruce Wayne is still like 8 years old. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense that the Joker is the Joker when Bruce Wayne is 8 years old. Like none of these things make any sense.
Yeah, I thought
It
that was
feels like
funny.
it feels like they're taking the Gotham show from 10 years ago and they're just making it into like they're just taking plot points from it and they're making it into a full feature movie. Like this, it just feels like that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if did Two Face ever come about in the Gotham show?
I think he did. He had to have. I don't know if he became Two Face, but Harvey Dent was definitely in it. Had to be.
Yeah, I mean Harley,
Everybody
yeah,
was
for
in it.
sure
They had everybody in that show. Every single Batman villain had an origin story in that show.
they did. But at a certain point, they're just like, screw it, we're just gonna go crazy with it because we're like, yeah, it doesn't make sense that all these the
Dude, they
villains,
said
this
fuck it
entire
and they
rogues
went for it.
gallery is
I've been meaning to
around.
watch it. I only watched like the first 2 seasons of it. I kind of want to finish it to see where it goes because I've seen clips of the final episode and it's just bonkers bananas how it gets there.
It gets crazy. I mean, because there's the Riddler
Did you watch it?
actor in that is he's in Saturday Night. He was
Yeah.
in May, December. He was
Is
in
he?
that, and he was great in that. So yeah, there's a few actors coming out of there that are great. I did watch it. Yes, I don't think the whole thing. It was like bits and pieces. Um, but yeah, they go crazy. They go insane. So I think there's a love story between Penguin and the Riddler.
Yeah.
So
The whole Joker storyline is ridiculous in that show.
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that was the one where I was not following along during the Joker season they had.
Yeah, he
But
was like a circus clown, and then they killed him off, and they were like, "Oh, he's the idea of the Joker. He's not the actual Joker. The Joker will come about, way in the future in Batman, but he's like the thing that inspires the Joker." And I'm
yeah,
like,
they
"Okay."
didn't call him the Joker. I don't know if that was like a rights
I was
issue or
like,
something like that. I don't know what the concern was there because they
I
could
I
just
was
called him
okay
Joker.
with it because I was like, I can understand that, and I can continue watching this show. And then they introduced a twin brother that he had to bring the character back,
Yes. Wait, Jerome.
and then
What was
he
their names? It was
Jerome and
they were
something else.
both
They were
J
Valescas,
names. It was absurd.
Jerome and Jeremiah or something. But then they
Yes,
bring the
that's
twin
insane.
in, and then he's the Joker. But then the twin also dies, and they resurrect the first one again. Like they bring him back from the dead
I
with
did see
the
images of that
Lazarus
because he
stone.
looks messed up. He's got like
Yeah, and then they
veins like the
cut. He
Dark
like
Knight.
he like he no
His hair
the
is
brother the
balding and
twin brother
thinning
goes
out.
crazy. He cuts off his face and then puts it back on for some reason, and so he has like staples on his face. And then that brother dies, and they bring back the original one back from the dead or something like that, and he's just like messed up all over. He's like full Joker, has like 3 strands of hair.
Yes.
He's covered in like white skin. They just go
Crazy.
balls to the wall with that storyline.
Yeah.
I kind of
They
want to watch it.
good for them. Of just going bonkers, going insane. Yeah, I remember I knew it was going crazy when they had Jim Gordon, his wife, Barbara,
Hmm.
dies and then comes back and now she's a criminal like
Yeah, that
mob
shit's
boss.
awesome. She's like the Harley Quinn to the Joker.
Yeah. It's
She's
like
awesome.
craziness. So yeah, I think it is funny that they included that little nod here because this film doesn't care at all about the comics or anything like that. Again, Harley Quinn, she goes by Lee in this. I don't
Yeah,
even know why they had her called Harleen Quinzel in like a newspaper thing or something like that. Like, there's no need. I guess they market it as like, oh, Joker and Harley, but again, they don't really care about that. It could have been any other character. I mean, it was not really that tied into, I think, the Harley Quinn stuff. She wore the makeup once,
yeah.
so
She
yeah,
got some makeup on in the fantasy stuff.
she did. Yeah, there's the when they had their little show, their dual show, they had
Hmm.
that. But
The like
yeah,
Sonny and Cher sort of thing.
so they I don't know, they sprinkled it in there, but clearly it was not. He did not care about the lore, the overall lore, or anything like that. So
Nope.
it was a weird inclusion. But
Yep.
yeah, any other thoughts on Joker Folie Deux?
Just had potential. Wish it was better. I feel like
Agreed.
I've been saying that a lot recently. Had potential. Wish it was better.
That's what's so
Good plan,
sad.
bad execution.
The kernels were there, the ideas were there.
You just had to pop it.
Just so true. Well
Baba.
said. How many mentally ill loners out of 5?
You go first.
I'm giving it a 2 out of 5.
So I will say when I first watched the first Joker, I think I recall giving it like a 2 or a 2.5 when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Having seen it again, I would like to re-rate it at a 3. I'm giving the
Wow.
original Joker a 3 out of 5. I'm giving this Joker a 2.5 out of 5. Two and a
All
half
right.
mentally ill loners out of 5.
There you go. Yeah, that's the other reason I want to go back to the episode because I want to know what score I gave it.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
went
think it was
hard,
a
bro.
lot less harsh back then, so I feel like I gave it a 3. If I were looking back now, I would probably give it a 2.5. However, after watching this film, I was thinking back to the first Joker, and there's a lot of really solid, just distinct moments from that film
Yeah,
that, for
I
lack of a better word, you can
remember.
consider iconic. Like that gunshot when he shoots the other guy, I don't even know his name, but when
Yeah,
Gary was in that apartment, like that, I
no,
still
he
remember
stabs
to
him.
this day. Oh, he stabs him.
He
But there's
stabs
a
him.
gunshot in
It's
there
the
somewhere.
gunshots in the subway when he shoots the guys in the subway. That shit stands out.
Mm. One of those, something like that. I remember that distinctly. Maybe it was the moment. It was the Gary is like jumping up for the lock on the door,
Hmm.
and he has to ask Arthur to come over and like open the door for him.
Hmm.
That sticks out. Obviously, the whole thing with Murray when he ends up shooting him, you get what you deserve.
Yeah,
All of that's iconic.
I
So
remember at the
Joker
time.
stares.
Yeah, I remember at the time me saying that whole year building up to the Oscars, saying how upset I was that Todd Phillips was nominated for Best Director. I thought it was ridiculous at the time. I thought Joker was a
Hmm.
bad movie. Having rewatched the movie, I think he absolutely deserves a Best Director nomination. I mean, it's directed. His direction is phenomenal in this film, in the
Hmm.
original Joker. I mean, everything is working and firing on all cylinders. I think the writing just needed to be picked up. Other than that, I think everything else works fantastic. Like I still remember the Murray scene in the Joker. We all know where it's going, and the tension that he builds in that scene is fantastic.
Agreed. Like it's yeah, really well done. So I remember those things very clearly. I was thinking, like, what of Joker 2 am I going to remember a few years from now? Like 5 years from now, they will not do a Joker 3 for a
Mhm.
variety of reasons. But when we're talking about some other Batman related thing, I'm like, could I recall scenes, like images, moments in the
Dude,
ways that I
no,
felt while
nothing.
watching it? I don't think I can. So I
I'll
think
recall the colorful umbrellas in the beginning, but in reality, that's just umbrellas of Cherbourg. That's it. That's all
it
it is.
is, yes. And I did love that. And I was like, okay, like we're in this. I'm liking where it's going. And then it did not
That is
live
a
up.
great shot. I will recall that forever. But in reality, it is just Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and that's why I like it. So really, I'm
Yeah,
just recalling Umbrellas of Cherbourg. If you have not seen Umbrellas of Cherbourg, you should. It's a good date night movie.
indeed. We talked about it on the show when you were flick picks.
Yes, we
So
did.
go back and
It's
listen to that
fantastic.
episode once you do watch it. Um, it's not a good date movie.
It's a great date movie. It's the same amount of goodness of date movie as La La Land is.
Okay, you're not wrong. I mean, it's a
Point
good
made.
conversation to have
Point made.
after those movies. I think it's a good date movie, so you can figure out, where are we? We should talk.
I don't
Um,
think date movies need to have. I guess I'm spoiling Umbrellas of Cherbourg
well, you sort of with La La Land the
and
connection
La La
there.
Land as well. Yeah. But I
Well,
don't think a date movie needs to have a happy ending. I think it just needs to be romantic. And I think those are both two incredibly romantic films that make
I
for a good date
agree.
night.
I agree, but I feel like if the
You know what doesn't make for a good date night? Cold War from 2019. I learned that the hard way. That was not a movie to take a date to. I was I was told it was a love story. It came out near Valentine's Day. I took her on Valentine's Day. I was really hoping that it would be romantic in some way. But it is 2 hours of black and white Eastern European period piece drama that was very, very dark and very, very sad and was not romantic at all. Big mistake. Should not have taken her to that. That was a bad call.
wow, consider yourself
Terrible movie. It's
warned.
a bad date night. Great movie. Great movie. Terrible date night. Terrible date night. Unless you're
Well,
dating an Eastern European woman in her 60s. Terrible date night.
wow, incredible. Um, but yeah, I think no, I don't disagree. I think those are very romantic movies. However, I think yeah, the ending will spark some conversation, perhaps,
Yeah.
which
Sure,
I
it's
think is a good
no
thing.
it's no When Harry Met Sally, you know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
no
that leaves
Princess
you
Bride, you
in a
know.
very happy, positive note. If you're in a more bittersweet or sad note, I think that'll just know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's no
Uh,
Sleepless in Seattle, you know, which
yeah,
I
I've
think
not
is a
seen
bad
that film.
movie actually.
Oh,
It's
well,
romantic, but I think it's really dumb. We'll get into that another day. We'll do a rom-com episode one day. Anyway, for
okay.
now, That's all the time we have. If you'd like to give your thoughts on the show, you can email us at theboxofficeshowpod@gmail.com.
Our main title theme for the show is Sundown by Joseph McDade.
And if you like the show, please give us 5 stars with whatever podcast app you are listening to, and be sure to tune in next week. Have a great rest of your day.